For my final project for Internet Fundamentals, I will be discussing web accessibility and how to incorporate it into web design. Web accessibility is designing websites so everyone can use them regardless of ability. When designing accessible sites, you want to consider the POUR principle. POUR stands for perceivable, operable, understandable, and robust. For a website to be perceivable, users must be able to understand the information being presented. It can't be invisible to any of their senses. For a website to be operable, users must be able to use the interface and it cannot require an interaction that a user cannot perform. For a website to be understandable, users must be able to comprehend information as well as how to use the interface. For a website to be robust, content must be robust enough that it can be interpreted reliably by a wide variety of users, including assistive technologies. 4 common disabilities to consider when designing websites are visual, auditory, motor, and cognitive. When considering visual disabilities, you want to avoid low contrast between the background color and the text color so the website is easier to read. You can also use symbols, patterns, and textures to increase contrast and draw attention to the important information on the page. Another thing to consider is people who use screen readers. For them, you want to include alt text on any photos on your website. Alt text is a short description of what a photo is, which is what the screen reader will read to the person using it. Also take into account colorblind people and color combinations that will be hard for them to read. I'm going to show you an example of a website with low contrast and a website with high contrast so you can see the difference. Let's start with a low contrast example. As you can see, this is pretty hard to read. It also just isn't very aesthetically pleasing to look at. In addition, because it's red and green, colorblind people would have a very difficult time reading anything on this page. In comparison, a high contrast example is much easier to read. The black text stands out from the pale blue background, and most people would be able to read this without too much issue. In addition, I've included alt text for the photo here. This is the code for the high contrast example. The alt text I included was boy on swing. You want the alt text short and to the point. The alt text is typically put right after the image tag. Also, when you're making websites, you can check your website with an online accessibility checker. I'll show you the Wave checker, which is at wave.webaim.org. You copy and paste the URL of any website into a Wave checker, and it will tell you if there are any errors. I copy and pasted my high contrast example. It analyzes it here, and on the left it says, "Congratulations, no errors were detected." Of course, my web page is super bare bones, so it's easier not to have mistakes, but the Wave checker could be very helpful for more robust websites. Some obvious accessibility solutions for people who are deaf or hard of hearing are to include captions in videos and/or transcripts for videos. Other things to consider are the importance of including multiple contact options on a web page, such as email in addition to a phone number. When creating a website, you also want to use simple, plain English, since many deaf people have English as their second language. Sign language is typically the first language for people born deaf. Using plain language will also help other people who have English as a second language. There are many people with limited use of their hands and upper extremities who may struggle to use a computer mouse. These people benefit from a website that is fully accessible through a keyboard alone. The keyboard controls I have listed below. Control L puts the cursor in the browser address bar. Tab moves to the next interactive element. Shift and Tab moves to a previous interactive element. Enter activates elements such as links or buttons. Spacebar activates buttons such as to pause or play videos or submit forms. Escape closes opened content or cancels a current action. And arrows navigate within widgets such as tab lists or checkboxes, and they also navigate around a page, such as scrolling up and down. When considering cognitive disabilities, you want to present website information in an easy-to-understand way. Usually navigation is at the top, important information in the middle, and less important information to the side. Changing the structure makes a website less predictable and more difficult to navigate. Make sure navigation is clearly labeled and there's no confusion of how to explore the website. Use easy-to-understand language so users can easily read the website's information. Autofills can be helpful for things such as passwords and usernames so users don't have to remember them. And have resources available for help such as frequently asked questions or a chat service. Overall, remember the internet is for everyone and should be designed in such a way that everyone is able to access the information they need.